Hello, Anne. How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you, Megan?
Doing great. Thank you.
So it's nice weather outside. Maybe some folks have other things to do tonight.
Hello,
Hi, Edie. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thanks.
Let's see. Me, Ann, Edie, Greg, and Michael.
Yep, just Gary, Vernell, and Jeff Klein that we're missing.
Well, we've got a quorum if we need to go ahead, but let's wait a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. We're really not talking about anything that we're going to vote on tonight. So those that are coming in later, if they come in late, can join us, but I don't want to waste everybody's time. So we will call the meeting to order. And if everyone who's on the committee will state their name so Deb can get the attendance down. This is Tom Clemens.
Ann Aldrich.
Greg Smith, present.
Michael Lushball,
Edie Wallace,
Okay. I thought, did I miss you, Greg? Did I hear you?
Yeah, I was the second one.
I'm sorry. Okay. Good. All right. So you've received the minutes from the March meeting. Anybody have any corrections or additions to that?
Tom, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. That's Edie.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, and I see here on the thing, we can actually click yes. Although Edie can't because she's on the phone, right?
Right.
Oh, well. Okay. So design guidelines is the main topic of discussion tonight and the staff report. Megan, you want to take it away with the design guidelines?
Sure. So I believe Tom and then also Gary were present on either the HDC or a body that was working on these design guidelines the last time. We have a document that was it contains the design guidelines and then some extra information regarding the history of the HDC and some of the other things like the Historic Advisory Committee. And it also contains some other information about the workings of the permit process and tax credit process. What I've tried to do is to take those design guidelines and pare them back a little bit to be a little more in line with just being design guidelines so that we can get something that is easily distributable to the public for a specific purpose, being to help them make decisions in the care of their historic structure. So we are trying to take a look at these with you guys now and see if we can send a draft document to you guys. It's basically just, like I said, a little bit reorganized from the original document, which if you'd like, I can send that out as well for those members that don't remember the original one. And then I do have the pared back version that's slightly reorganized that we can send. And I'd like to get your comments on that document. The basic outline as I have it right now is to state the purpose of the guidelines, go through the application requirements. There's a short history of Washington County, and then it goes over the Secretary of Interior standards, which you guys have already had exposure to, I'm sure. And it talks about the actual guidelines in these few topics here with, context and site features, rehab of existing buildings, et cetera, et cetera. They can be reorganized. The document can be further reorganized by you guys. Feel free to comment however you'd like. I also do have copies of the City of Cumberland, City of Frederick, and the Frederick County interim design guidelines. Now, Frederick County actually decided to use CLG funding to get theirs updated, and they should be getting a draft soon. So I'm actually curious to see how that turns out for them, because we would like to eventually beef these up even more to have more content in them. So what I'm looking for from you guys is, do these guidelines as they are right now provide sufficient information as they're currently written? Do they have enough topics covered? Does anything need to be removed or expanded? And then we'd like to have these in place as an interim so that if we go through the process of contacting customers for tax credits and things like that, or permits, we can hand this out to them or have this as a reference for them until we can get something that's a little more beefed up. So I am planning to send copies of these to you guys for you to review by the next meeting. I do have some staff comments that I'm finishing up here this week, and I should have that to you by the end of the week for you to review before the next meeting. Did anybody have any questions about the process and what staff's looking for on these?
Megan, if I recall correctly, the CLG, was it CLG training that, or the Maryland Historic District Commission training that we went through that had a section on design guidelines? Is this in line with those, or is this kind of an interim as we move towards something like what they presented to us?
The certified local government training had an ordinance in there for the Historic District Commission that it preferred that we follow, but we became a certified local government before that was in place. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referencing, but the Maryland Association of Historic District Commissions does have design guidelines mentioned in their trainings, and we do plan on taking some more of their trainings in the coming year. So we will definitely be able to learn from those and add to this. You guys have the ability through your powers listed in the zoning ordinance to adopt these guidelines. So they're there as a reference for you and for the public. So absolutely they'll be in line with the Secretary of Interior standards, which is generally speaking what the Maryland Historic Trust, and of course, if you're going to apply for the National Register or historic tax credits at the federal level, they will want you to follow those. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it certainly did. And I have one more clarification. I think I heard what you were saying is that the Historic District Commission has the authority to adopt these. Do they then have to go through any other process for before being applied or used?
They only need to go through a public information meeting with you, not the commissioners. Is that what the county commissioners, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's exactly what I
Yes.
was referring to.
Yes. You have the authority through the zoning ordinance to adopt these through a process of just this board.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Megan, Greg here.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm kind of new to the commission and the guidelines. So do I understand you correctly? You're going to send us a copy of the document that follows this outline, and
Mhm.
we will adopt or not adopt at the next meeting. Is that what we're saying?
I'm looking for your feedback on where you think, whether you think it has enough information in it for the topics that are listed as being covered, whether you want to expand or remove anything, or just general comments. And then I will take those comments and incorporate those and any other additional staff comments, because it's still out for review here in our department as well. I'll just take all those comments and put them together and make sure that we have it formatted correctly, and then we will bring it back to you before we would actually formally adopt it. And we need to have a public information meeting as well.
Works for me.
Okay, anyone else with questions? I remember we worked on this, it was years ago, and I honestly don't remember where we kind of pulled all this stuff from, but I guess we can talk about that when we see it again.
Sure. Yeah, I can send the original document too, if that would help, especially you, since you were involved in the original process to put all the pieces together. But I can definitely send both just so you have it as a reference.
Yeah, I've probably got it in a note somewhere of minutes that I've kept over the years, but it would be easier if you could send it, I think.
Absolutely. I can definitely take care of that.
Thank you.
I'd like to see both also.
Sure. I'll put it out there for everybody.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. If there's nothing more to be said on design guidelines, I guess we're ready for staff report.
Okay. So I did want to follow up with you guys on a couple of topics, including just general permit review. So for the historic rural villages, Jill has really helped extensively with the interpretation of the zoning ordinance for section 5D5, which is the architectural review portion of the zoning ordinance. That is where it lists the reviewable areas for the HDC. And it states, I'm sorry, I'm going to read this, but it helped me to understand it. So rural villages that are identified in the historic sites inventory, individual parcels identified in the same inventory when the village is not identified, and properties listed in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Places or on the National Register. That's when you guys have the ability to review exterior appearance of new construction requiring a building permit, to have review and disapproval of those, approval and disapproval of those permits. So as Jill and I talked about this extensively, what you used to review, you will see on the screen in orange and yellow. And those are the ones where we've had full surveys done, You're used to reviewing new construction and the exterior changes in those areas. The ones in red are areas that we've had full surveys done before, but we haven't been reviewing in those areas unless it was a demolition permit. And the ones in white are ones that we added based on that language that I just kind of paraphrased from section 5D5 just now. So we've basically added quite a few areas of review for you for the HDC. And these are all areas that have been in the survey for quite a while. There's a few that are newer, like Turner's Gap and Fox's Gap, but a lot of these are ones that were previously surveyed through Maryland Historic Trust. So they're not new. It's just that staff has really looked at the ordinance trying to make sure that we are reviewing areas that we should be reviewing. And as you can see, that has been expanded. So these areas have been added to our permit software for permits that get applied for to come through the HDC. So I do have a quick little map where that you can kind of see the additional areas now, that if there's a permit that comes in for those areas, we'll be bringing it to you. If it's an exterior permit for exterior changes, we'll be bringing it through to you guys for review. So I just wanted to give you an update. Yeah, absolutely. You want the link to it, or do you want the
link is fine.
Sure.
Yeah. Just so
Sure.
I can look at it next time I'm on the computer.
Absolutely.
So these were surveyed, but they're not currently on the Maryland inventory?
They are on the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties as either individual sites within a county rural village, zoning rural village, or they are within a Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties district. So like Turner's Gap and Fox's Gap are a Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties and a National Register district. So before we didn't have that coming in for review by you guys, but it is listed on there now. So the list is long, and I'm sorry, Edie, but I will send you the list as well if you'd like. I can send you all the PowerPoint too at the end of the meeting as well, because that would probably be just as helpful for you to be able to see the list.
Now, the incorporated towns then have to actually vote to let the county HDC review historic structures. Is that correct?
We don't have any review authority in the towns for their permits for Historic District Commission. We don't have any agreements set up for that. The county does handle their permitting just for tracking purposes, but we don't handle any of the review for those.
Because that seems
Megan, how many of the towns do their own besides Hagerstown?
I will have to double check, because they're at one point, I believe Hancock had started doing their own again, but I'm not sure that they still are. I think they came back to county review for permits. I'll have to double check that for you. Let me
I
make
guess a more direct question is, how many of the incorporated towns are taking a serious approach to this,
So
in your opinion?
I honestly don't want to speak on that, because I haven't been able to find it. I haven't been able to find a lot of information on the town's websites when I've been looking, but that doesn't mean that there's not someone there taking care of it. That is on my list of things to do, is to reach out to each of the towns and see if they have an active commission. I believe when we discussed it the last time, that Williamsport did have some activity, and Clear Spring, obviously through their historical society, does have some activity there as far as proponents of historic structures. But the other towns, I'm not sure about. I have to check with them. They have a very small, limited volunteer staff most of the time.
I know from my past experiences, most of the towns want the county to take a laissez-faire approach to anything they do, but I was just wondering if any of them would be interested in this body looking at things for them or reviewing things.
Sure, we could always investigate that. I'm not sure that we have any, the only thing that I know of that we review for right now for the towns would be through our addressing ordinance that we have. We do assign addresses and things for the towns. I'd have to investigate that further and talk with Jill about that. I'm not sure that we have a precedent for that type of review in the
Yeah.
towns.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this, Gary. And we agree, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, in the last meeting. I think what Megan and I have discussed is the design guidelines for us was the first step before we start going out and promoting and bringing people into our frame of mind. We wanted to have something to point to say to people, here are our standards. You know, it's not a matter of our preference or our taste or our likes. Here are the standards. This is what we review by, because, you know, you get that perception of, it's like you said, the towns are more like, well, I know that's what this ordinance says, but can you do this? The answer is going to be, here are the standards. Here's what we'll review by. If you would like for us to do the review for you, we are happy to do that. We'll draft up an MOU and we'll start doing that review for them, just like we would for forest conservation or for engineering or for stormwater, anything like that. I felt like at this point, it was more important for us to get these design standards in place so that when somebody says to me, okay, so you're going to do a review, what does that mean? What are you looking for? What does that mean to our citizens? Because that's always going to be the first thing. What kind of regulatory process are you putting on us here, right?
Well, and you know, I jumped into this without talking to anybody else on this commission. I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't mean to induce more work for your staff or certainly for this group, but I was just wondering if there might be a desire for, I don't know, call it suggestions or a friendly review, or there's a lot of expertise on this commission that I'm sure would be willing to offer help rather than to see something of any significance torn down simply because it's in an incorporated boundary that no one was looking at. So again, Tom, I know I'm overreaching here, but I just was thinking out loud about whether or not something productive would come of such a suggestion. That's all.
No, I think it's a good suggestion, Gary, and I like where Jill and Megan are going, saying, you know, get the guidelines first so we can hand it to them and say, this is what we want. But yeah, I mean, I live in an incorporated town. I know a historic survey was done, and I'm sure it probably has a half inch of dust on it now because nobody's looked at it since it was done. And so it would be nice to get some of these incorporated towns added onto this, since that's where the bulk of the structures are that we're concerned about.
Yeah, okay. Again, I'm just thinking out loud about.
No, you're not out of line at all, Gary.
I just hate to see something demolished or destroyed that had a reasonable chance of survival had someone just been willing to offer a friendly, not an aggressive, but a friendly review or make an observation or something. And, you know, if the town wants to take it, fine. If they don't, then nothing's lost except the time that was invested.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense to me.
Okay, I did make a note to make sure we do reach out after we finish up the design guidelines for towns, as well as some of the other areas that we were going to reach out to with these rural villages.
Well,
and
I'm
things
a
that we
very,
talked about too.
I'm a very visual person, and I have to admit this is a very impressive list. It really grabs me to see such an extensive list of villages and communities. I never personally realized that there was such an impact around the county.
Yes, and these have been, like I mentioned, these have been on the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties for quite a while now at varying levels of survey levels. So, yeah, we've got a lot of great areas to keep, hopefully. So I did want to also mention that what Jill alluded to about having the guidelines in place will assist with our outreach in these areas. And then eventually what our goal is after reading through the ordinance is to, within the next couple of years, after we finish up some state mandated documents that are due, we're going to move toward hopefully updating the zoning ordinance so that the language is more clear, possibly moving some things around. Because you'll notice I called these rural villages and communities. I think when people read through the zoning ordinance now, it's slightly confusing to just say rural villages because it gets confused with just the zoning rural villages.
Mhm.
So you can tell that these areas are also communities. So we're going to try to get back to updating the language at some point as well.
Megan, one of the areas that we talked about in the past was Manners Church, the community at Manners Church Road. And I don't see that on the list. And, then there's the Bridgeport area, and that may be incorporated in Hagerstown. I don't know. But I'm just wondering if there are other communities that probably have at least inventory properties that should also go onto this list.
So I can definitely take a look at the two you mentioned just to double check and see if they follow the criteria that we listed, but we have to follow whether it has that Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties district boundary, not just a cluster of individual structures. So it had to have been evaluated as an area as a whole, or also be in one of our rural villages. So I will take a look and see if either of those two places have a district. I don't believe they do. I triple checked that, but I will make sure just because you did mention them and see if I can look at those areas and see what the status on those are.
Yeah, we had that horrible experience with Manor Church, and it just because it's not in a district, and we were pretty much powerless to do anything. And I think that's what is sparking that with Gary, and it's still a sore spot with me too.
Mm.
Ooh, yeah, it very much is. That one
Yeah.
still stings.
Yeah, I I literally try not to ride by there anymore. It just makes me so mad.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, but anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly someplace that ought to be in a district, and maybe, if it's not too late, we can figure out a way to get a survey done there.
Yes, and the reason why we wanted to look at what we have is so we can better pinpoint where we need surveys. So that's those two areas. I marked them down. We'll take a look at what's there now and definitely keep those on a list for potential surveys if that's what's needed.
Great, thank you, Megan.
Okay, any other questions on these? I just wanted to give you a quick update on what we found.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else with comments or questions about anything?
I just want to say this is really helpful. Thank you for putting it together.
Sure. Thank Jill. Poor Jill had to have several meetings with me about this so we could get it all ironed out.
Okay.
Thank you, Jill.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you guys really been working a lot with this, satellite stuff going on. I really appreciate everything you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's no problem. Like I said, I told you a year ago, maybe a little longer now, that we felt like this was a weak spot in our planning service. And I told you when I brought Megan on that we were going to start bringing this to the top. And I hope you're starting to see that, and we're trying to move things forward so that this does become more prominent in our planning policies.
Yep. Well, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. So I did want to touch on the staff reviews. You guys are aware that we didn't have anything for you guys to review for this meeting, but that doesn't mean that we didn't get any permits to look at. So I just wanted to let you know some of the staff reviews that happened. We had a permit at Hopewell Road, AC&T, for a canopy replacement. We also had a residential new construction permit along Miller's Sawmill, which I did forward you all some information for. That's the new construction that was occurring with the demo permit that we had a site visit for.
Right.
On Willow Road, we had a residential addition alteration where they're putting a new mobile home where a structure was destroyed by fire and then subsequently demolished. That particular structure was not inventoried. However, it's part of the old orchard properties out at Willow Road. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that area, but it's a very large parcel and it has several different inventory structures on it. So I did send the owner and the applicant what I like to call the no review, but here's a contact information letter. So I did reach out to them and provide that. I did not hear back from them, but I just wanted to let you know that we did send them something. We did have a pole barn replacement at Hoffman's at 13225 Searfoss Pike. I did also send them the same letter because the historic home is still on the property. So I wanted to reach out to them. And then we also had on Mount Etna Road a church that's expanding their sanctuary, and that church is on the inventory. And it's not in a reviewable area for us for exterior changes since it's within the growth area and not in a district. So I did send them again that same letter letting them know that we are here. We have tax credits if they need them. And by the way, that structure is historic. So we reached out to all of them. And I did want to also give you a follow-up on Stone Mount. Jill received a letter from the owner who we copied on the comments to the consultant for that project that you guys reviewed the last time. And he reached out with a positive message that he has been restoring the property and he intends to convey the property or add to covenants on the property that the historic structure is to remain, and he is receptive to the HP overlay at some point as well. So I will be scanning that letter when I'm in the office the next time, and I will include that with this mega packet of information for you guys for your review so that you can read it yourselves. So I just wanted to give you an update on that, which I was pleasantly surprised by that. Glad we got in contact with them.
Good. Thank you.
Can you give us an update on the Seventh-day Adventist Herald and, you know, the site on Oak Hill?
He's talking about the Herald Review.
Yes.
Yeah.
The BZA case, is that the one you're referencing that was in the paper?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I do not know the status of the BZA case at this time, but I will look that up and see if it's been decided upon, and I can include that in your update packet here after the meeting. I did not.
They approved that, Megan.
Oh, they
I
did?
think it was approved. I spoke with Megan and Jill about, and the bottom line was that the demolition permit was approved. So even if it's a new owner and a new rezone, that doesn't change the status with the demolition permit. So they can still tear it down.
But
yes.
it did change hands though, right?
Yep. Well, no. I think the original buyer backed out.
Yeah, so it's still in the same hands. If that's where you were going with it, yes, the Tom had reached out to Jill and I regarding that previously approved demolition permit. And we had already discussed with the Division of Plan Review and Permitting whether or not a new demolition permit would be required if a new site plan came through or the owner changed. And they stated that they intend to just keep that same demo permit open for that property, so it would not come back before before this body for review.
So the key word to all demolition in this county, as far back as I can remember, is the word jobs. So is that still their same approach? Do you know, Megan? Is that project? I thought that project fizzled, and that was one of the reasons why they were considering selling.
The project that the BZA reviewed most recently was for something different, for 2 warehouse spaces, I believe, or 2 distribution type spaces. So they haven't actually submitted a formal site plan that I'm aware of at this time. So I'm not sure. Usually that information is included on that plan. So I can't speak to that part.
If
The
I
motto
may,
to keep in mind, Gary, is with preservation, when we win, it's a holding action. When they win, it's permanent.
Yeah, and I'm really excited at the prospect of seeing 2 more warehouses in our area.
Yes, exactly.
if I may, this is for now. In all the news stories, there was no mention of the structures on the property. It was all about changing the required parking that was to go with these structure, with the warehouse thing, but there was no mention that I saw about the buildings on the land. Am I missing something?
In regards to the proposal on the property,
Yes, to build they want the warehouse and they wanted to have a reduction of the number of parking spaces required. And I
Yeah.
think that's what was approved, but I didn't see anything in any of the news stories about the buildings.
so they have not, again, let me stress that they haven't actually submitted anything that I'm aware of that's a
Okay.
formal site plan, but included within the BZA packet was a kind of similar to a site plan for their
Concept.
concept. Thank you, Jill, for the project. So that concept did not include the historic structures being retained. Until it goes through the full site plan review, which you can comment on, there's no saying for sure what their intent is at this time. And they
Okay.
wouldn't have to wait for that in order to demolish what was there, because as we said, the permit is still active.
Yes.
It's all dependent on what they would like their order of operations to be for that particular portion.
Well, it was of interest that they said some of the warehouse structure would be office space. And I thought, well, if they needed office space, there might be a building there that they could use. Don't know if they're aware of all that. But anyway, it was of interest when that came to the news again.
Sure. Yeah. Did anybody have any other questions for staff reviews or for that particular portion? Okay.
Can you tell me how long that demolition permit does stay open? Is it forever or?
I guess I'll take that
Okay, Jill.
question for Megan. So we asked that exact question, and we were told previously that demolition permits, any permits really, I think, they do have an expiration date to them. My recollection is that it was 6 months. It's either 6 or 12 months, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 months that expires. When I presented the question, the director of the plan review and permitting office, Ashley Holloway, his response, well, yeah, technically that might be the expiration, but because he didn't see the point
Losing you,
of
Jill.
demolition. So, he made the decision that permit will stay open and active.
Forever and ever.
Well, when back in the day, it used to be, at least when I was with county government, they had 12 months to activate a building permit. If the project was not started in earnest, it was revoked and they had to go through another review. But that was back
It might
when
be 12 months. I can't remember, Gary. It's either 6 months or 12 months.
What is disconcerting, though, is that a demolition project, by virtue of a department head, can just stay open indefinitely. That's troubling, because a new purchase, a new owner comes in with a totally different plan that has no bearing or effect whatsoever on a structure. And by virtue of the fact that it's already been approved, they can go ahead and tear it down. So that's troubling in itself.
Something there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay, well, on that happy note, is there any other comments or questions?
I would like to say that they're still there as of the last time I went by. So Jill constantly reminds me that I'm very Pollyanna about this type of stuff. So until they're gone, let us hope that the property owner will be interested, and or the person developing the site will be interested in feedback from this board and retaining them. So let's keep a positive outlook.
Okey-doke.
All right. So we'll end on a high. I'd like to just briefly touch on National Preservation Month and the status of what we're trying to work on for that month. This right now is kind of a basic outline of the weeks that we have set up and what generally I'm trying to post about. I have an entire document set up with links and some of the pictures and things that I intend to include, and I am going to send this to you as well for feedback. This, however, I would appreciate feedback on before the next meeting, and I believe I have it set here. Let me double check. On April 21st would be great if you guys have the time to just give me any feedback that you might have on these. That way our PR department has time to schedule all these lovely posts that we would like to have done that month. So they schedule well in advance this information. And then they also help review and make sure that we have correct links and all that kind of stuff in there. So generally speaking, these are the topics that I plan to cover. So week one, what is Preservation Month and Historic Preservation? And then you can see I have basically 2 posts week and then 1 architecture term of the week. And then Anne has also, I believe, spoken to the trust, and I've reached out to them to see if, and I just did that recently because I was trying to get this outline done before I approached them, but I did reach out to them to see if they had things that they would like to add as far as perhaps articles on projects that are successful or projects that we've lost, unfortunately, or structures that we've lost. And of course, structures that are being successfully saved and cared for and stewarded through the process here. So I have contacted them to see if they want to add anything to these, but I haven't heard back yet. And I just sent that either today or yesterday. I can't remember which. But of course, go ahead, Ann.
I will follow up. I presume you sent it to Pat Schooley?
Yes.
Okay, I'll follow up with Pat. I know we have talked about 3 possible properties. One is the Hive on Little Antietam Road, which somebody purchased last year. I don't think we've ever seen a building permit for it, but somebody is actually restoring it. And then Fox Deceived for the one that was lost. And Stonehouse, the Stonehouse in front of Lowe's, I always forget the Shank Farm, I guess it is.
Mhm.
That's one that was saved and has been successfully repurposed.
Great. Yes, and I saw those included in your email that you sent as well. So hopefully, I'm very confident we can fit those in with some of these topics that we have mentioned here. And I was trying to break these into different topics for each week to try to make sure I touched on all the things that we had talked about last meeting. So again, I will send a follow-up document that's much more extensive, that has the actual wording and links and things in it, so that you guys can take a look at it and see if there's anything specific you'd like to add or take away, that kind of thing. So for week 3, we have inventory and tax credits. And then week 4, speaking of, remember what we have and what we have lost. So that would be a great week to do some of those articles, or we can blend them in elsewhere. But I will be sending this out to you with the due date included. And then if I hear from the trust in between then, or Miss Schooley, then I will update you guys with that information as well.
I
Any
like that
questions?
contrast in week 4 of what we have and what we have lost.
Yes, you guys did mention that in the last meeting, that you basically with those articles as well, that you wanted to focus on what we have and things that we have lost, to try to kind of drive that home. And I thought it would be good to have it that week after we've talked about everything.
Megan,
Mhm.
is the what we have a look at properties that are in danger?
So right now I have what we have listed as kind of going over examples of our architectural styles. And then right now I actually have a quiz on there for the public that goes through how well do you know your architecture? And it's a little National Trust for Historic Preservation quick quiz, kind of a social media quiz for people to take. And I thought it was fun, but I'm kind of a geek about that stuff. So I thought the public might like to go through that and see how well they know it. And again, that would be a great week to post some articles about the different types of structures that we have as well. But I'll let you guys take a look at what I've gathered, and you can feel free to add to it or kind of reword it. That's totally fine.
So Megan, Greg here.
Sure.
I'm excited about the very first post you have there. Lives are rooted in places. I was just curious. I don't know what kind of architectural formal education you have, but there was a book in my education that was, I consider, really seminal, called Genius Loci, which was a book about phenomenology, or the study of places and how they are enmeshed with lives and all the natural world around, really. I didn't know if you ever heard of this work. I sometimes find unexpected people who have actually read it, some in the field and some not, but I didn't know what inspired you to put that topic in.
I have not read that. However, I did take I did have courses in geography and sociology and all that kind of stuff in college, along with the archaeology and historic preservation classes. And I'm always fascinated by how people use their structures and their surroundings. But that particular saying was something that I found on the National Trust website. And they have what I thought was a great video that I have linked for you guys to look at, to really drive home that, these historic structures and that sense of place is really important in our culture. So I hope you'll like the video too. We can always feel free to add your book as a link as well.
I don't know if I'd recommend it for the general public. It's a rather difficult book, mostly for architecture and sociology types. But really, here in the HDC, I think what we're really doing is examining the genius loci of Washington County and trying to make people regard them more.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I will send this out. Does anybody have any other questions about the basic outline? Okay. Great. So I'll send this out. Like I said, I won't be offended. Feel free to comment, add to, delete, whatever you'd like. And I will work with PR. And then, of course, like I said, the trust, whatever they are able to provide to assist with this. Thanks, guys.
Megan and Tom, if I can, I would like to let you know that the trust will be holding 2 more historic building workshops. We're going to do another historic window workshop that will teach people how to repair, restore, or even fully remake windows and weatherize them. And that's June 25th, 26th, and 27th. And then we're going to do another exterior workshop that Greg participated in. And we're going to do replace the soffit, fascia, and gutter on the eastern kitchenelle of the Sailor House. So I just wanted to let people know that those are upcoming. People can register through the city of Hagerstown.
And what
What's
was
the
the date
basic
on the
time
second?
frame on that, Ann?
Second one, sorry, I totally spaced that. That is the weekend of September 11th and 12th.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else with any announcements, comments, etc.?
Question, Tom?
Sure.
The advisory commission has a meeting coming up with the commissioners. Is that right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We've asked to be on the April 13th agenda, and Jill will let us know when that agenda is out Friday, hopefully, whether that meeting is a go for next Tuesday or not.
Okay, there were 2 reasons I asked, and one of them was if there is an outcome of some kind from that meeting, it might be something that Megan can sneak in to the Preservation Month. You know, a hooray, a good news, or be on the alert because we're still in this situation.
I would be very surprised if there's an outcome from that meeting, but I guess stranger things have happened.
Okay.
I think we have to be careful too, what we ask the staff to post, because if it comes out confrontational with whatever the commissioners come out with, it puts them in a very difficult bind. If it's a positive, then I can see posting it. But if it's somewhat in some fashion adverse to preservation, I think it's better to be silent.
Yeah. I think I would agree if we're pinpointing the good parts. We don't want to stir the flames.
Good point, Gary. Thank you. All right.
Tom,
Yes.
if I could, just one real quick thing. I think Megan covered everything really well. One other thing that did happen, and maybe we covered this last month, I'm not sure, but the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area held their meeting not too long ago, where we reviewed the applications for this coming fiscal year round of funding. We had a lot of good applications this year. It'll be interesting to see how they all pan out in the end. But just another good year for us in applications submitted and all of the good things that are being worked on out there.
Yeah.
As you know, I sit on that board, and that was, I'll tell you, that there were a ton of really really good projects that came in for requests and some very well written grant requests. But hopefully there's some really good ones coming through for Washington County too.
I'll throw in an FYI. The Kretzer House on Main Street in Sharpsburg is up for sale. And for those who aren't conversant, that was a very important house during the battle. A lot of the citizens sheltered in the basement of that place. And there was an incident with a young lady and an American flag that is part of the history and lore of Sharpsburg. I had a chance to go through it today, and the house itself is amazingly still intact in a lot of ways. There's been one floor that's been covered over with new flooring, but most everything else, stairs, floors, and all that, but it's got a major water problem in the basement. So it's one of those ones where the price is fairly attractive, but the restoration of it is going to be very expensive.
What are they asking for, Tom? I noticed it today when I came through Sharpsburg with Lucas. And I was a little concerned when I saw the for sale sign, because I always get nervous about one of our key structures, what becomes of it.
Right. They're asking $350K for it. And it's got a very big yard. I'm pretty sure it's actually 2 lots, and it has a spring on the property in the back, and the town creek runs through it and all that. But there's big time water in one of the basements. And, you know, I mean, literally the beams overhead are wet. It's,
Wow.
yeah. So I would estimate it's probably going to be, you know, another 2.5K, 250,000 or so to completely restore it.
Oh my.
Well, you got a big, you know, structural problem there with these beams. One of the beams is badly termited. And I mean, there were places inside where they had drilled a hole through the wall and put an extension cord through it to, you know, have outlets in some of the rooms. So, I mean, it really needs rewiring, you know.
Well,
It's
let's hope
been on the market a while.
that somebody with a little TLC gets it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm about to put out something on our website about, you know, just to say if anybody ever dreamed of having a historic house in Sharpsburg, here's a great opportunity, but you do have some work to do. I mean, I think if you just put a pump in there and pump the water out continuously, it'd be okay. But you know.
Tom, was Schaff interested in the property, if I might ask?
No, we try not to get involved in houses because it becomes a money pit, and
Yeah.
you know, then we're kind of stuck with the maintenance. And so, you know, while we encourage it, but most of the properties that we have bought had post-war structures on them that we tore down.
Yeah, right.
Which is a whole lot easier than trying to maintain and restore something that old. It's, you know, I'm afraid that if we put the kind of money in it, it needs to be put in, we'd never be able to resell it.
It would be great if we could get the tax brochure in the hands of the real estate agent, a number of them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the agent I went through today with is not the listing agent, but I'll see what I can do. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I will second. This is Greg.
Greg is a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and opposed, same sign. Jill and Megan and Deb, thank you so much for everything, and we'll look forward to seeing the packet you send out, and maybe sometime this calendar year we'll look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, guys. Yep. I'll
Thank you.
be sending a follow-up.
All right, take care.
Thanks
everyone.
for everything.
Thanks everybody for coming in.
Good evening.
Thanks. Good night.
Night.